They told me it was.
I'm going to recall the meeting to order. Again, this is a special Select Board meeting of the Shelburne Select Board, April 3, 2018. The next agenda item is public comments. Are there any? Hearing none. First, we need to consider approval of the agenda. Sorry.
Josh, do you need a fork?
Yes.
And I do have a few comments on that. It got by me that number 7, that the reference to agenda 6 is my plan is to introduce interim town manager, which is identified as number 2 first, and search second, and priority projects third, and rules of procedure fourth. I'm not sure that rises to the point of amendment. As well, I'm going to ask our agreement that as opportunities for motions and decisions arise throughout the some hours of discussion, we do those at the time and not wait until the end of the meeting. Seems to me there'll be some confusion by the end of the meeting by lumping them all together. If anyone is not happy with that, we can certainly reprise them all in number 7 at the end.
No objections.
Agreed? In which case, we've had our tour. We're very thankful for Joe arranging it. It's been extremely interesting, and we'll certainly want to send a communication thanking Bill and the management. Public comments, I heard none. I'd like to therefore open by discussing interim management, the interim town manager issue. And I'd like to read you a proposal from myself. A clear, immediate need for executive certainty, provision for transition, brief as it already is, and allowance for continuity in town operations urges appointment of an interim manager as soon as practicable. An acting town manager for the interim period is neither desirable nor workable. The town charter substantiates our need by reference to appointment of an interim manager with the full authority of a town manager in a circumstance such as ours. In recent days and weeks, a number of possible candidates for interim manager have been identified, some by their own expression of interest, others by recommendation. Among these, all of whom are distinguished, one, Lee Crone, it seems to me, stands out for his unusually strong qualifications, which include extensive municipal service in Vermont as a planning director and interim manager, among other major responsibilities. He has basic familiarity with town of Shelburne operations and working knowledge of some. His dedication to the town, evidenced in part by his VFD membership, is long-standing and inspired. I propose that Lee Crone be nominated as interim manager, subject to presentation and approval of an employment agreement 410, and that myself and Jamie be delegated authority by the Select Board to negotiate that agreement on his behalf with Lee and CCRPC, which is the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. Is there a motion to that effect?
Do you want that in one single motion, or do you want that in two?
In one.
All right, so moved.
A second? Coming to discussion, Josh, if you'll let me conclude. Second. Discussion.
I don't think the motion is appropriate without having some discussion first, and I think I'd like to know who other possibilities are in that, and I would like to be able to use the intervening time between tonight and next meeting to explore what the possibilities are. I don't see any need for rushing into making a appointment this evening.
So I would counter that by saying that I think we actually do have immediate need to have an interim town manager. We have Joe for a very short period of time, and the more time that he can be here to guide Lee in the things that he might not know in depth, the better it's going to be for our town.
Yes, but I will think, I never think choosing from having one person in your choice is the way to go.
And for permanent, I would agree. But
No,
for
I would
interim,
think,
don't.
and I would think for interim as well, I think, I feel very strongly that that 1 week is not going to make much difference, and I would like to explore what are our options. And I think it is mindful of us to work from a position of knowing what our possibilities are rather than identifying one person and moving on.
What would you plan to do in the next week's time? And how would we vet?
Exactly, I think that's a good question. It depends on who, a number of people have mentioned other names to me. And I think I would spend the time during that week looking at the positives and negatives of all people who have been suggested or nominated, and trying to make an assessment of who might be the best fit. But starting off by saying this is the person, I'm pretty uncomfortable with that.
Could we, Josh, maybe talk about the other names?
Yeah.
I just want to introduce Dave Bonus.
Thank you.
I'll be sitting down the hall here if you guys need anything.
We don't allow.
Yeah, just keep your head and yell out,
Thank
and
you,
I can help you. And,
Thank you.
VP of Finance, but also has sourcing, and inventory, and HR, and product manufacturing, reporting into him. Where's she at? He's a recovering engineer
That's right.
who did a stint in Target and a stint as a banker before I
Yeah,
found him and brought him into the group.
that's right.
Good to
Right.
meet you.
Thank you, Dave.
It's great to meet you guys.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks. If you hang around long enough, we'll recruit you.
Want to be town manager?
Is there any further discussion?
Well, you said you had some other names that.
Bob Lake called me. Chief Don Stevens called me, responded to each. Another name was Steve Palmer, who was recommended by someone. I'm sure other members have had calls and recommendations too, and they're certainly free to identify them.
I would just add, I think I understand Josh's request, but I think there's a lot to be said for expediency with this, given it's a 4-month-ish role. If there are names, Josh, that you think merit spending more time discussing them.
I think all of those names would be in it. What strikes me, Jerry, is that, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but has your statement, have you had conversations with the rest of the board about before you've made it?
Not with everybody, no.
We've
Okay,
never
well,
talked about it.
No.
No.
So, I mean, I think that I just, it just strikes me as to make such a statement with such a clear indication of a choice is not, I just don't feel comfortable about that way of doing business.
Thank you. I think it's an executive decision that we're responsible to make as soon as practicable, and in that sense, I'll call the question. For those of you who approve of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay.
Nay,
Nay. Ayes have it with Josh.
I think that's really unfortunate.
The next item is town manager search.
Mr. Chairman, if somebody
Could I
can...
just ask a procedural question? If I may?
By all means.
Okay, so I don't know if there are going to be other motions made, but customarily in your meetings, there will be a solicitation of comments from the members of the audience, and I just want to know if that's going to be the case and whether or not that would... It's too late to
Yes,
make
I
any...
thought we asked for comment. I wasn't sure that there were... Gee, I didn't hear any, so that's my fault, I guess. But we'll certainly make a double down on that the
Well,
next
it's too
time
late for your
around.
last motion.
I'm sorry. I apologize to you.
Do you want to...
Would you like to comment now?
No, there's really no point.
Well, I think the comment could still be
Sure.
received by the board.
And we're permitted to rescind motions, so.
I'm interested in what you have to say, Dean.
And I'm glad that you're interested, and I had a couple, well, some of them may be comments and some of them may have been questions. I was really curious, having known Lee Crone, I dare say longer than anyone else in this room, I think I would be a person who could offer helpful insights as to his capabilities. So I was curious how his candidacy came about. Was he approached first? I know that there was a meeting on Joe's schedule with Lee several weeks ago. I wondered what that was about, and so I'd like to know whether or not, was that part of this process? Was it separate? I'd like to know essentially how he came to rise to the top.
Yeah, I'd like to know all that too.
And I'd like to know, frankly, whether or not there are any assumptions that are being made about what other people's reactions, including staff's, to having him serve as in the interim role, because I don't believe there should be any assumptions made, although there may have been.
I honestly don't know, Dean, what you're referring to in the way by assumptions. I'm not sure what that means.
I meet with Lee on a lot of topics often. So a number of weeks ago, I talked to him about the fire department. I talked to him about, don't shake your head, Josh. I'm telling you the truth. So those were my meetings with Lee.
Yeah.
His availability, I'm going to answer for myself, his availability was brought to my attention. I'm not sure how, if you'll let me finish, Josh. Several weeks ago, I did not know Lee at all, hardly to ever have had a conversation with him. I sought him out. We had a multi-hour conversation last week. He satisfied me in terms of not only his qualifications, but his approach and knowing something of the other two. In my judgment, he's an ideal candidate. He's available. He knows our town, and I think it's in our best interest to proceed on a sooner than later basis. Steve?
Just a question and a comment, please. First of all, what is the gentleman's name? Lee?
Crone.
Crone, K-R-O-H-N.
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 Thank you. And the comment I have is that I think this new board needs to be careful that we're not going to end up doing things that were so that excited so much controversy by being arbitrary and not inclusive of the whole board. It troubles me to see any member of the board be completely come to a meeting and be completely in the dark about a decision that the quote-unquote board has made. And that, as we know, occurred with the last board over and over again and was a source of a lot of resentment and disunity. So I understand the motion is passed and I'm only a member of the public and so on, but I see a potential danger of that becoming the modus operandi, and I hope it does not.
I mean, I would just, to respond to you, Dr. Metz, certainly no decision was made. I mean, I had a conversation with Jerry over the course of the last few weeks, in fact, about several names. So to the extent that other board members have done the same,
But
that's just healthy dialogue that's happening with the chair of the board. So I disagree with.
But it hasn't been a whole board.
Understood.
So if there was
a discussion, there's no decision making.
No
like
decision.
Joe or Jerry and I never had. I never talked to anybody.
Right. I mean, I spoke to the chair.
However, there was a email sent by Joe to the whole select board, essentially, and Jerry just parroted that email.
Well,
So I think that is.
I'm not sure which email you're referring to.
I sent an email to the board explaining my concern and suggesting that the board move swiftly on appointing an interim.
Which was then followed by a equally assertive email by Ann Janda saying Lee Crone should have the job. I think
She has every right to send that email.
she does, I'm not saying. But if anyone would look at those two emails, one would suggest and that there was a strong lobbying effect for this process, and I think it is really improper to move this quickly in that direction without having a significant discussion about the ups and downs. It just seems like, and I agree with Dr. Metz. To me, it doesn't smell right.
I'm going to conclude with a comment. First, to note that this is a nomination subject to an approved employment agreement, which will be on the agenda next Tuesday night, at which point there'll be further discussion of employment. And secondly, to say that it is my considered judgment, having some experience with municipal management as well as interim management, to have thought through starting from what I thought might be a workable part-time arrangement and working my way through with some long thinking to the point at which we really do need a full-time person. That puts a premium on availability, and when you have a candidate who is so well qualified and available, that's an opportunity that I think we should take advantage of.
I feel that it's important to move quickly on this. I also feel it's important that the nominee be somebody that both Joe and Ann feel comfortable with, so they could work with them, so there could be as smooth as transition as possible. I think we're talking about something that's temporary. I would like to hear from Mr. Pierce, however, who just told us that he knows Lee Crone probably better than anyone here, because I'm worried that he has some concerns. If you feel comfortable answering, and if that's okay.
Yeah, I hesitate to prolong this, to be honest, because we've got a very full night. But Dean, I'd be extremely interested to hear your comments. You're giving us the impression that maybe they're not entirely positive.
I think it's good for executive boards or legislative bodies to hear a diversity of viewpoints from people. I think that there was an opportunity available to Joe when I said to him, I've heard that you've got a recommendation for the board, and he sort of sidestepped the question that if he had said, yes, it's Lee Crone, because the evidence is suggesting if there was some discussion that at the very least Ann knew about it, Joe knew about it. I don't understand why department heads didn't know about it and weren't at least given the chance, particularly in a situation like this one where someone who knows Lee very, very well could have offered the board an independent perspective.
I'd like to hear your independent perspective, Dean.
Yeah, me too.
Well, this
and
is
especially someone, alluding to whatever conversation we might have a hallway.
I'm not.
Give me a break, Dean. And let's be realistic here. Both Dean and Lee are in the same profession. They're both planners.
No, I'm not alluding to any conversation. I'm asserting there was a conversation that you and I had. So if you want to dispute that we had a conversation, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to, in a session like this, come out and offer an assessment. Under the circumstances, I'm just not going to do that. I think that there were opportunities for opinions to be sought from logical people to ask who were not asked, myself included.
Well, I regret that we don't have the benefit of your insight, but that segues into the next item.
But we could have had benefit if we had an open discussion.
Yes, Josh, you made your point. Made it.
Hang on, I'm sorry. I think we did have an open discussion.
I'm fine. Move on.